What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Fight HQ podcast as we're here to break down UFC São Paulo, which goes down here on Saturday down in Brazil. Lock will be at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Of course, main card, 9 p.m. Eastern time, the entire fight card on ESPN+. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. So, Pete, let's just get into it. I mean, let me have it. Let me have it. You know, we haven't been here in 2 weeks since UFC 294, and you finally took down a listener contest. We're not even going to talk about where I finished.
I think it's hilarious how pre-show Jason just all of a sudden forgets who won the last contest, and he's like, trying to scroll through things. He's like, I'm not sure who won it. And I'm sitting here pondering, and I'm like, wait a second. I won the contest, and you had a pretty bad lineup in that contest. So, I'm going to do my victory dance over here because it's been some time since I took down the listener contest and never have done it. Usually I'm at that bottom tier. You guys have been killing it, a part of the listener league. So if you haven't joined, click the link in the description below to join our Discord. And in there, we have tons of conversations. In addition to that, that's where we have our listener contest as well. And you can get to see me at the top and Jason at the bottom.
I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at my lineup from 2 weeks ago. I only had two winners, by the way, Peak and Dumas. My losers, Nathaniel Wood, Tim Elliott, Volkanovski, which was a cash play for me. I mean, obviously, you called her on the show 2 weeks ago with the head kick by Islam there. And then I have Ankalaev, of course, that no contest, which was just kind of a weird. I mean, that was. That fight card, man, it's never good when one of the talking points after a fight card, Pete, is, hey, you see what the K-side doctor did?
I know.
Okay, Pete, let me just, okay, you're the fighter here, and we're going to get into these fights on Saturday, but you're the fighter here. Could you imagine it's January, you're in the cage there up in Connecticut, and that doctor comes in and goes, no, man, you didn't get kicked in the balls?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, because I would definitely get triggered. You know what I mean? And Victor Henry's a vet. So for a vet like that to react the way that he did, I mean, he fell face planted. It looked like a Call of Duty animation, the way that he fell to the ground. Clearly he was in a lot of pain, and I don't know, man. That doctor seemed just too involved and a little off. I don't understand what his deal was. That's when experience comes in, not only for officiating, but also for, just ringside physicians as well. Like that's something that we don't necessarily talk about, where you have guys who have hundreds and thousands of fights under their belts of being a part of a commission, and guys that are getting into the sport. And as MMA starts to expand, amongst different countries in the world, we're going to see guys kind of learning on the fly. And that guy just completely ruined a lot of lineups for multiple fights.
Well, and then you have Basharat after the fact questioning whether or not he did get kicked in the balls. I'm like, dude, you are tempting the MMA gods in your next fight. You are tempting them that you're just going to get kicked about 3 times. And yeah, it's never a good sign.
I had friends, I had family and friends text me like, dude, he didn't get kicked. I'm like, listen. The cup protects a good amount, but sometimes the worst position to get hit is underneath the cup. And that's where it seemed where glancing shot underneath the cup, that is like the terrible place. And that's just getting things, hit against the cup where, you know what I mean? Trust the guys when he's getting kicked low. I mean, having 5 minutes to have to recover after a shot like that, it is a difficult task to begin with. Never mind just dealing with the pain.
Yeah, it's just, but we're back here. We got UFC cards here for the next 3 weeks. Of course, we got a pay-per-view next week. Of course, that pay-per-view went through some changes with John Jones suffering an injury in training camp. And, of course, now we got an interim heavyweight title fight. Of course, a light heavyweight title fight as well. But, of course, we're here to talk about UFC São Paulo. And as Pete did mention, we do have our DraftKings contest. That the link is below, so you can get into that contest and then play along with us. Let's take down Pete this week. We gotta get, and hopefully hopefully I do not finish in last place again. It's been a while since I won that listener contest. I got to get back on the winning ways. Of course, you mentioned about that Discord channel. Pete did set up various channels in our Discord channel. Say if you're playing some NBA DFS and you want to talk with everyone that's in there about who you're going to play that various night NBA, be sure to check. I haven't had a huge chance to really jump into the NBA. Things have just been crazy in my world, but I think I'm trying to get some NBA DFS this weekend. Of course, we'll talk about Prize Picks here on the show as well. So if you got any questions there on Prize Picks, of course, a great way to submit a question is over Discord, or if you want to send us a super chat, we appreciate that as well. And huge thanks to those people who are clicking those links and taking advantage of the deals that Stochastic has. That's a great way to help support what me and Pete do here on the Fight HQ podcast. But Pete, as we talk about game theory for UFC São Paulo coming up, and as I look at my spreadsheet and when I do the spreadsheet here on Thursday, the big thing for me is more of, okay, how many 9,000 fighters we have, and then how many fighters that do we have that are under 7,300? And we've got 7 fighters that are over 9,000. This is a UFC fight night card in Brazil, so that's got to be a part of your equation. More times than not, Brazilians shine here, but it's one of those things of I look at these 9,000 options, and as I'm thinking about game theory, my first thought is, who is going to be the 9,000 option that loses?
Yeah, well, who's going to be the 9,000 option that loses? I have one in mind, and we'll get to him. But it's a guy that I think has gas potential, also striking defense potential, deficiencies rather. I definitely love Jailton Almeida. I think that the price tag and the odds between Ismael, Bonfim, and Vinc Pichel are kind of completely out of whack. Completely, I think it's way too much in favor of Ismael Bonfim, who was just exposed against Benoit Saint-Denis. Completely different type of fighter, but still, that's just way too hefty of a price tag for most of my lineups. Newcomer and Eduardo Mora coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. Gabriel Bonfim, I think, is the better Bonfim brother, truthfully. I do think that he's...
Is anybody questioning that?
Yeah. Well, I think at the beginning, when Ismael broke into the scene with that flying knee over Terrence McKinney, there was an argument. And then now, clearly, everybody believes that Gabriel is the better brother. I definitely think that he has a clearer path in that division as well. Caio Borralho, love him. Rinat Fakhretdinov, love him. Vitor Petrino's the guy that I'm kind of not buying. I'm not buying into the Petrino hype in this matchup against Modestas Bukauskas. We'll get into it, but I just think that he's a good fighter, but I don't think that he's amongst the elite. I can't wait to break it down with you. I mean, so some interesting price tags, lots of hometown favorites or hometown fighters. So we'll see if they can shine in front of their crowd.
The other fight that I'm looking at here, and I guess it's really two fights. The first fight to me would be the Rodolfo Vieira Armen Petroysan fight. Just looking at it from a price point aspect, we know about Rodolfo Vieira, his pedigree with jiu-jitsu. We also know the fact of now you got Petroysan, a kickboxer, so you got clashing styles. We've seen Rodolfo Vieira, that cardio can become an issue if it gets later on into a fight. And then, look, you're not going to feel great either way just because it's at the lower end of the UFC heavyweight division, and that's the Nascimento and Mays fight, just because which Dontel Mays shows up. That to me is a question mark, and those are to me, and you look at those 9,000 options, and I look at Fakhretdinov fight, how much is he able to use that grappling? Over Prize Picks, his takedown prop is 3. There are some lines over Prize Picks that definitely stick out to me, but then I start looking at some of these underdogs that I'm like, I'll probably get to a lot of Angela Hill at 7,800. It's one of these things that when you have so many high price options, I'm like, okay, we got to find who is going to be that fighter that maybe they win, but maybe they don't score. Nicolas, we'll talk about this one. Nicolas Dalby is a guy that typically goes 15 minutes, Pete.
Yeah,
is he might be a guy that, if you're more playing cash, I'm more of a cash game contest player. He might be a guy that I look at as a sour relief just because I'm thinking, okay, likely his history says he goes 15 minutes, even though I'm really high on Gabriel Bonfim. But that to me is where I'm at. Especially when I look at all these fighters that are underneath 7,300. you mentioned about the Vinc Pichel. I mean, obviously he is at the tail end of his career. He's had some injury situation, but Ismael, I think, is obviously not the better brother there. And we'll see Kruschewsky, what his salary. We've not seen what his salary is going to be. Of course, he's stepping up here on short notice, so we'll get into all that. Of course, as always, appreciate you tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you can smash that thumbs up button, we really would appreciate it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. Also, if you want to check us out on the podcasting platforms, you can do Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as we do get the podcast up there just a couple hours after this show is over, and always do put those time marks in after the show is over as well. But let's get right into it, Pete. We got the main event. We got a heavyweight matchup. Of course, initially it was going to be Blaze taking on Almeida. However, Blaze pulls out of this fight a couple weeks ago. Now Derrick Lewis steps in. Derrick Lewis, a plus 385 betting underdog against Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida is minus 550. Of course, as we do this show, the FanDuel salaries are not out. We'll check that out towards the end of the show, maybe if they do get posted here. But over on DraftKings, Almeida 9,600 and 6,600 for Derrick Lewis. Pete, what is your thoughts, man?
I definitely think that anytime Derrick Lewis fights, he's live to knock out his opponents. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But as far as stylistically, I think this is a terrible matchup for him. I do think that Almeida, I liked him earlier on at light heavyweight, but he has actually shown that he can be a force within the heavyweight division. It was something where I was thinking, okay, is Derrick Lewis just too big and too strong? And, we've seen Derrick Lewis drop some weight, and we've seen him kind of slim down for the division. I think that Almeida is clearly in a favorable matchup if he takes down Derrick Lewis. Outside of just doing the strongman get up, I just think that there's such a vast technical skill set. Like, Almeida is so much better than Derrick Lewis as soon as it hits the mat, from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to ground and pound. Jailton is just relatively untested on the feet. So if you are taking flyers, I can understand why some ownership is coming in on Derrick Lewis, just because we still don't know how Jailton Almeida looks against, let's call, mid-tier to elite competition. And Derrick Lewis has been a part of that conversation. And also, it's just like, what happens if he can't get the takedown? I think that it's clearly going to happen. Jailton has done nothing to show me anything to get away from him. The only issue is at 9,600, does he win too quickly? If it's just over a minute, he does not get that quick win bonus. Similar to how he beat Jairzinho Rosenstruck, scored 104 when he was priced at 9,600. Just given the landscape of the slate, there could be other options out there that kind of outperform that score. But we've seen him also touch 125, 120, 113, 118. So I just think that he's a fantastic play. Derrick Lewis, time and time again against grapplers, has been in there and has knocked them out as they're attempted to take him down. Curtis Blades, Alexei Oleinik. But I definitely think that we've seen Derrick Lewis kind of lose a step despite coming off an impressive knockout against Marcos Rogério de Lima. Jailton Almeida is going to be a priority play at 9,600. If I'm wrong, it is heavyweight MMA. It is volatile, but I'm okay with it because I just think that Jailton Almeida checks more boxes.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things with Derrick Lewis, and we've seen the issues that he's had against grapplers. And if you look over Prize Picks, there's 3 different props out there on Jailton Almeida. Significant strikes 15.5, fight time 4, and then a fantasy score of 120.5. None of those props really intrigue me, Pete. I mean, if I was going to play anything, I might go more than 15.5 significant strikes.
Yeah, because I think that, Derrick Lewis can be stubborn, and maybe Jailton goes out there and pounds him out. And his ground and pound is what makes his submission skills so dangerous, because sometimes you just see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners go in there and hunt submissions. And then if some guy's stubborn or he has decent defense, they're able to kind of stifle the Jiu-Jitsu attacks. But when you combine submission attempts, ground and pound, back to a submission attempt, it really opens up so much opportunity. And, you said that line is at 15. He landed 4 against Jairzinho. 45 against Shamil, 17 against Anton, 18 against Parker Porter, and 30 against Danilo Marquez. So, I mean, I think that Prize Picks line is kind of right in the correct territory, but I'm with you. Some of those props don't necessarily stick out to me because, like, that 120, he could just get under that, you know what I mean, but still smash on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I talk about on Prize Picks. You know, if you just want to play MMA on Prize Picks, I prefer more go with the 2 to 3 prop. But, you know, on Saturdays and even on Sundays, you know, you can team it up with, you know, college football props, NFL props, especially if you want to get to that 6-teamer, which, man, I almost hit a 6-teamer the other week. Yeah, unfortunately, Trevor, I had the more fantasy score on Trevor Peak, and he came 3 points.
Oh.
It would have been a 6 for 6.
Damn.
Yeah. I had 3. I think honestly I had 2 or 3 MMA props along with 3 college football props. And, oh man, yeah, that is. Right when I opened that app and I saw that, I cried a little bit beer. I might cry. That would have been a nice little payday over there at Prize Picks. But yeah, especially on Prize Picks, if they've got, you know, some special where that was one I think where it was like Steph Curry half-point score. I mean, so then you knew all you had to do was hit 5, and yeah. Right when I saw that, I was like, you already know how I felt at that point. That's like missing out on first place by, like, you know, a point. You're like, son of
yes, sir.
But we're all. Yeah, we're all trying to take down these tournaments this weekend over here on DraftKings. I just did look, by the way, on FanDuel. They still have not posted salaries, but if we do get those salaries in the show, we will mention those. Let's move over to the co-main event. You got Gabriel Bonfim taking on Nicolas Dalby. Gabriel Bonfim is a minus 650 betting favorite, Pete, plus 450 for Nicolas Dalby. Bonfim 9,300 and 6,900 for Dalby, Pete.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, you mentioned it earlier of how Dalby can be a punt play at 6,900 because if you look at his record, you know, goes the distance a lot, almost impossible to finish, and you know, you just see him in the UFC. Actually, in his career, he's never been finished. But if you remember, there was a fight against Jesse Ronson who did end up popping in that situation, so that fight was reversed to a no contest. Hit Dalby with a big shot, followed him to the ground, landed some ground and pound, submitted him. You know, I understand that Ronson, you know, popped in that situation, but I just think that Gabriel Bonfim, he's, you know, pick your poison. I think he's gonna, you know, hit you with some good combinations on the feet. He's got excellent hands, and he has dangerous submission skills. In that situation, we saw Dalby tap relatively quickly. I do think that there is a path for Bonfim to get a finish here. I like him a lot. I think that he is going to get a finish. I think he's just too dangerous. He's got so many options, so many ways to beat you. So for me, I understand looking at box scores and seeing how he's been the distance a lot. And it's Dalby's range and rhythm that frustrates his opponents, where he just stays on the outside, peppers away. If you overcommit, he will land takedowns too. And he's, you know, good in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a very, very good grappler. But I just think that Gabriel Bonfim, he hunts the neck so well that he gives you no option. You're going to, you know, take a nap, or you're going to get knocked out. So I think that Bonfim inside the distance is an excellent play. So on DraftKings or whatnot, if you can hit that KO or submission prop, I just absolutely love it. 9,300. He scored really well too. So 96, 118. I think he's going to score better than 96. So give me Bonfim here at 9,300. I'm not a fan of the Dalby punt this week.
No, I mean, for me, it's more about his history, but I understand that. You know, if you look over at Prize Picks for Bonfim, you got 3 props over there. Significant strikes, 25.5. Fight time, 6 minutes. And then your fantasy score is 118.5. And if you're like what Pete had to say there, that 118.5, maybe that prop, you maybe look at playing over there going more than 118.5, especially if you can get him out inside the first round, which, you know, the 6-minute fight time prop is kind of intriguing to me in a little bit. You know, maybe that Dalby survives and gets it, you know, even if he gets stopped in the second round, you know, you get over that 6 minutes, but that's kind of the one that did stick out to me. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup, and you're probably not going to feel good either way. You put either one of these guys in your lineup, and that is Rodrigo Nascimento and Don'Tale Mayes. Nascimento is a minus 195 betting favorite. Don'Tale Mayes is plus 165. He's 7,400 on DK, while Nascimento is 8,800 on DK, Pete.
Yeah, Jason, you know my rule, right? Can't really bet against American top team unless they're going up against another super team. And I do think that, Jackson MMA is clearly not what it used to be, but it's still one of the best gyms in the world. So I think that this is a situation where I'm intrigued by both sides. Rodrigo Nascimento's best path to victory over most of the heavyweight division is by taking them down and incorporating his ground and pound into submissions. I just don't know if he has the best takedowns. I love the fact that he's a part of American Top Team, getting work in with Steve Mocco. That wrestling camp, a part of American Top Team, is just so crucial. The issue for me is how he seems so boxing focused. I understand that, he's probably a better grappler than striker, so he wants to get better at his weakness. But I just see a guy that does not move his head off the center line. I see a guy that plods, that believes he has power in his hands, and he doesn't. He kind of has pillow hands for this division. He has good combinations when he lets them go, but I just think, defensively, he's a liability. We've seen him get rocked numerous times. A couple fights ago against Alain Baudot, he got 10-8'd. Alain Baudot is not a good fighter, and Alain Baudot had him on skates. He followed it up with 2 split decision wins over Tanner Boser and Alir Latifi. I think that they're both impressive, but those are kind of overblown light heavyweights, if you want my honest opinion, right? Don'Tale Mayes is a big guy, really big guy, has been training with all the fighters a part of Jackson MMA, training with John Jones specifically, and John Jones, even in that silly footage of John Jones hurting his pec, he was trying to take Don'Tale Mayes down, and Don'Tale Mayes had a real good whizzer and had good hips and didn't get taken down, resulting in John Jones getting hurt. I'm not picking Mayes because of that. I'm just saying, you got a high caliber training partner that you are working with who's clearly rounding out your game. Give me Don'Tale Mayes here at 7,400. And I'll tell you, knee-jerk reaction, I always look at first impressions. My first impression was Nascimento goes out there and, takes him down and subs him. But I can't trust him to go to the takedowns. I don't know, man. I just think that he's believing in his hands a little too much, and it's going to get him caught against the guy in Don'Tale Mayes who's, who just picked up a nice victory over Andrei Arlovsky. I understand that Augusto Sakai kind of pinned him against the cage, but I think that Mayes, in a volatile division, I think he's going to knock out Rodrigo Nascimento.
Look, I don't blame you. I just think you're not going to feel good either way.
No way. And that's why, I'm going to get exposure to both sides. It's a low-level heavyweight fight. So you have to have exposure. Mm-hmm. And in the heavyweight division, there's a likelihood of it going, it being a finish, not going the distance. So give me the underdog in Don'Tale Mayes.
Yeah, these are always the fights that concern me. When you talk about low level, MMA, low level heavyweight MMA, because it can really go either way. Looking over at Prize Picks, Nascimento significant strike prop, he's 41.5. Fight time is 10.5. Takedowns 2, and fantasy score 92.5. Maybe that fight time one, maybe the one I would look at a little bit more than the other ones, but you're not going to feel good either way. I don't care who you want to roster up in that matchup. Next up, we got Magomedov taking on Borralho. Borralho is a minus 310 betting favorite, plus 250 for Magomedov. He is 7,000 on DK, and Borralho is 9,200. Pete.
Yeah, I don't understand the love that I'm seeing for Abus Magomedov. I just don't. I know that he's had a ton of fights. I understand that, where he comes from. He's a dangerous striker. But against Caio Borralho, I just think that Caio is elite. He's on an upward trajectory, whereas Abus Magomedov is looking to rebound off of a terrible performance against Sean Strickland. He has a nice victory over Dustin Stoltzfus. But like I just think that Abus Magomedov is going to get hit with some shots that he doesn't like from the evasive Caio Borralho. And despite Abus having good offensive wrestling, I think that he's going to get out grappled here by the tricky Caio Borralho. He's a jiu-jitsu phenom. I really think that this kid is insane. He's so good. The team, the Fight Nerds, is a team that I've circled as an upper echelon team. And I think that Kyle is going to do it here. The issue is, does it go the distance? And I got this massive bird outside my house right now. I don't know if you hear it chirping away.
Oh,
but,
I do.
Yeah. What in the world? What's going on? Yeah, Caio Borralho at 9,200 is going to be the play. If Abus goes out there and upsets Caio Borralho on short notice, I'll be really impressed. I just do not see it happening.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And when you look over at Prize Picks, Kyle's significant strikes 30.5, fight time 11.5, 2 takedowns, and 91.5. It's kind of crazy that you think about Magomedov, from where he was in the PFL now into the UFC. I mean, he gets thrown into the fire against Sean Strickland, of course, now the champion, and now kind of, taking that step down in competition, but I'm with you there. Next up, we got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armen Petroysan. This is a straight pick on both sides, minus 110. Petroysan is 8,300. Vieira is 7,900, Pete.
Clash of styles, right? Insanely talented grappler in Rodolfo Vieira. Insanely talented striker in Armen Petroysan. What happens? I think that on the outside, clearly Armen Petroyan's going to pick Rodolfo Vieira apart. Vieira needs to blast double him, put him against the cage. The issue is the efficiency in the takedown department. I just don't think that Rodolfo has phenomenal takedowns, and that's where like jiu-jitsu practitioners tend to lack. A lot of guys that are from a jiu-jitsu background just do not have the wrestling chops when you put everything together. 1 of 7 against Cody Brundage in the takedown department. 0 of 20 against Chris Curtis. 3 of 4 against Dustin Stoltzfus, and 4 of 10 against Anthony Hernandez. So I think that he can take him down. But like Armen Petroyan's show me a good get up and stand up ability where he gets back to his feet. I mean, the fight against Gregory Rodriguez, who's not the same caliber of grappler of Rodolfo Vieira, but a very dangerous grappler, had Armen Petroysan in some very, very bad spots. And Petroysan got out. And he got out and he got up and he didn't quit. So I think that I really like the Armen Petroysan side here at 8,300. It's always tough when you have a guy going up against an absolute specialist. But I am going to pick Armen Petroysan here at 8,300. I just think that, from everything I've seen from Rodolfo Vieira, very untrustworthy. He got dropped and almost finished against Cody Brundage, who I do not think is good. And I just think that Armen Petroysan, the fight starts on the feet, and he can defend some takedowns, and he just cannot give up his back. If he gives up his back, I think it's going to be a quick night. So give me Armen Petroysan here at 8,300, but it's a great fight to target. And I think that either way, we're going to get a big score out of this one. But give me Armen Petroysan with the lean.
Yeah, I think when you talk about fights to target this week, this has to be right up there just because it is a clash of styles. And, obviously if you're on the Vieira side of this equation, I think you have to be concerned of if this fight hits the second and third round, what will that gas tank be like there? You mentioned all the statistics there on his takedowns. And, of course, if you're Petroysan, can you kind of weather that storm there? If you look over on Prize Picks, Petroysan, significant strikes is 40.5, fight time 9.5, and a fantasy score of 76.5. I feel like I would attack the fantasy score over those 3 over there, just going more than that 76.5, because to me, if he wins this fight, and I think that the likelihood is that either one of these guys will win by finish, and he wins, he'll go well north of that 76.5 number. So that's the one on Prize Picks that I really like if you're looking to attack that matchup. Next up, we got Ismael Bonfim taking on Vinc Pichel. Bonfim minus 550, plus 385 for Pichel. Pichel is 6,700 on DK and 9,500 for Bonfim. Pete, what's your takes, man?
What a ridiculous gap in salary and what a ridiculous gap in betting odds. I don't see Ismael Bonfim being a 5-1. That's ridiculous. Like minus 500 is crazy. almost plus 400 dog for Vinc Pichel. Like, this is a guy, I understand he's old for the division. He is 7-3 in the UFC. He's fought notable names. He has been finished in the past against Rustam Khabilov, Gregor Gillespie, but like he's fought Mark Madsen, Austin Hubbard, Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts, Joaquim Silva, like Anthony Njokuani, like a lot of names that you can recognize. I just think this is kind of like old school matchmaking, prospect against a UFC vet. I just don't like the salary. And if you look at Ismael Bonfim and you watch a lot of his fights, he tends to get people out of there towards the end. I see a lot of third round, KOs, TKOs. I think that Vinc is just a very difficult guy to get out of there. And Vinc will strike, and this will be a back and forth contest. I think Vinc is going to get hurt by Ismael Bonfim's excellent hands. But then it's going to make Vinc wrestle. And I think Vinc is going to wrestle. And we saw what happens if Ismael Bonfim gets controlled. He got absolutely worked against Benoit Saint Denis. So, like, there's a path to victory there for Vinc Pichel, who's done it against many, many, opponents. I just still think at the end of the day, Ismael is going to get a decision win here. I think it's going to be Vinc makes it interesting. Ismael lands some better shots on the feet, and it comes down to damage versus control. So give me Ismael Bonfim, but me personally, I don't like the price tag. If he goes out there and finishes Vinc Pichel, I think that's really damn impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder. I mean, you look at the, Vinc is clearly on the back nine of his career. I mean, and his age, just kind of wonder maybe is this at, kind of that classic UFC matchmaking of, really trying to use that guy that's been around for a long time and a younger guy to try to elevate that younger guy. So that's where kind of my thoughts there. If you look over at Prize Picks, Bonfim 48.5 significant strikes prop, 10.5 fight time minutes, and 106.5 on the fantasy score. Once again, not anything that I really love. I just wonder maybe could Pichel just being that vet get this fight to the third round and get to the 11-minute mark. That's kind of where if I was going to attack it on Prize Picks, I'd probably go there. Next up, we got a matchup where we only know the price on one side of the equation. Of course, that's Elvis Brener taking on Kaynan Kruschewsky. Kruschewsky plus 130 betting underdog, minus 160 for Brener. If you're not familiar with Kruschewsky, if you go on YouTube, actually one of his fights in LFA is up there, so you can check his fight up over there if you're not a Fight Pass subscriber. I know, by the way, Fight Pass is doing some deals where I know I heard John Morgan talking about it. Basically, get 3 months for the price of one if you're looking at it on Fight Pass. And by the way, if you're like myself and live here in the state of Florida, sports betting is going back live, Pete, in a month from now.
Awesome. Happy to hear that for you guys. That's great.
Well, I mean, it's still going through the courts, so who knows? But the Hard Rock did say yesterday that they're going back live December 8th. So we'll, when they had MMA before, they did offer. It was just doing money line props here. But you talk about Brener. He had a previous opponent here, and now he gets a change up opponent instead of up here on a week's notice.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I hope this fight doesn't happen, just because it's going to ruin my construction. I think that Elvis Brener at 8,200 is going to be the play. I don't know his opponent's salary, but I think that Brenner's been impressive. His previous performance is extremely impressive. I mean, because I was a guy backing Guram Kutateladze pretty heavily. And guess what? Elvis Brener has the dog in him. And he goes out there and no matter what, I feel like this guy gets beat up in training so much that he's so accustomed to it. And if you have any ounce of fatigue, he's going to stay there from bell to bell, and he's going to test you, and he's going to come back. And he overcomes adversity really, really well. And he just picked Guram Kutateladze apart at the end, and it was largely due to fatigue, but picked up a knockdown, 2 takedowns, 2.5 minutes of control time, scored 101. Was priced at 6,800 in that fight. So everybody, including myself, we were on Guram Kutateladze. But prior to that, against Zubaira Tukhugov, he was priced at 6,600, relative short notice, scored 60 in the decision. I actually think that Brenner's new opponent is pretty good. I think that they're both going to test each other. So what I am actually rooting for in this situation is just underperforming from a score standpoint. I'm still picking Elvis Brener because his opponent has been finished in the past. And I do think that a guy who's already been at the big stage, he's accustomed to the whole process. He's impressed me. He really has impressed me. And I think that as the fight goes on, he'll kind of get his feet under him, and rounds 2 and 3 will be his. I think that he's going to drop the first to a really excited guy making his UFC debut. But after that, I'm expecting a Brener decision or a late stoppage. So give me Brener at 8,200. But truthfully, I hope it's a low-scoring fight.
Yeah, I mean, if you look over at Prize Picks, I think it kind of tells you what Prize Picks thinks of this matchup here. Brenner, significant strike 62.5, fight time 14 3/4, 2.5 takedowns, and 85.5 fantasy score. Ooh, oh, I hear that. Ooh.
You know why? Because that's good. I mean, like at 8,200, it's really hard to not make it into an optimal with a win. It can happen though if it's in the 80s. Like 80 is still really good. But it's, if you got 6 fighters, 90 plus, then if you avoid that mid-range, it could work out for you. So it seems like they're expecting this to go the distance as well. And I'm kind of happy with those lines that I'm hearing that.
Yeah. It's funny. I'll tell you before the show, I was over on, kind to, when I'm looking at Kruschewsky's name, I'm like, how do you pronounce this? And so I think when the LFA fight was up there, so I had to phonetically spell it out a little bit there. Next up, we got Fakhretdinov taking on Dos Santos. Dos Santos, a plus 285 betting underdog, minus 360 fair for Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov is 9,100 on DK and 7,100 for Dos Santos, Pete.
Yeah, Rinat Fakhretdinov is going to win this fight. And against Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos, I think that Dos Santos is dangerous on the feet. If you aren't legitimate, he will hurt you. He can throw good kicks. He has good submission skills. He's just a good test. The issue here is that he's coming off of back-to-back split decisions, one in favor of him against Abubakar Nurmagomedov and one against him against Muslim Salikov. I think that this is a nice opponent for Rinat Fakhretdinov to go out there and get a win against a guy who has 9 UFC victories. It's kind of like a perfect maturing process for Rinat Fakhretdinov. Andreas Michailidis in his debut, Brian Battle. Now you go up against a guy who has 9 victories in the UFC. The issue I have with Rinat Fakhretdinov, and it's kind of hard to poke fun at anything he does, is just his inability to pass guard. So he has excellent control, excellent takedowns, a big right hand. He's going to take Zaleski Dos Santos down. It's just how frequent is he going to take him down? Zaleski Dos Santos, we've seen him go up against Benoit Saint Denis and beat him from pillar to post. We've seen him go up against Abubakar Nurmagomedov, stuff 7 takedowns, stuffed 3 takedowns against Muslim Salikov. So with his takedown defense ability, I think it could slightly limit the ceiling of Rinat Fakhretdinov. I just think that, eventually he's going to get him down, and then he's going to get control time, and then he's going to incorporate some ground and pound. But, you're looking at 13 minutes of control time against Andreas Michailidis and 14 minutes of control time against Brian Battle. I think, personally, Rinat's probably going to have between 7 and 8 minutes of control time. So the score of 129 and 108, I don't think it's going to hit that unless he gets a finish, of course. So basically, the skill set of Dos Santos can slightly negate the ceiling of Fakhretdinov. So I'm picking Fakhretdinov here. At 9,100, he's part of American Top Team. Zaleski Dos Santos not a part of a super camp. So I am favoring the American Top Team prospect in Rinat Fakhretdinov.
And looking over at Prize Picks on this matchup, Fakhretdinov, significant strikes 36.5, fight time 12.5, takedowns 3, and fantasy score 101.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 3, I think, is right.
Yeah, I mean I hate playing that high of a prop though.
Same.
Just because, okay, if you go more, okay, so he's got to get 4.
Yeah, they're setting a trap right here. And let me tell you why they're setting a trap. Because he had 5 of 10 against Andreas Michailidis and 7 of 9 against Brian Battle. So I do think that the takedown defense of Dos Santos is going to come into play. Eventually, Rinat's going to get him down. and it's either going to be a push or it's going to be under.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at some of the ownership projections out there, I understand why Fakhretdinov is going to be, as of this point, maybe one of the most highest owned fighters out there on this card. Next up, we got Daniel Marcos taking on Victor Hugo. Hugo is a plus 205 betting underdog, minus 250 for Marcos. Marcos is 8,900 DK, and for Hugo, he is 7,300, Pete.
Victor Hugo, a very frustrating guy to find tape on. He has a second last name, so eventually I found some tape on him. But there is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner named Victor Hugo who is not him. So it made, the tape study very frustrating, but I hate this fight. I don't like it. Daniel Marcos goes out there, 8,900. Victor Hugo kind of reminds me of, what's that guy's name that is completely volatile who fought CJ Vergara, Da Silva. Kind of reminds me of him, where he's just he hunts finishes, he's sloppy, puts himself in bad positions, seems like there's questionable fight IQ. It worked out for him on the Contender Series where he picked up a leg lock victory. I don't know, man. I just think that Daniel Marcos, he's not a grappler by any means, but I do think that he can defend some takedowns, as evidenced in his UFC debut that ended in the second round. Defended 5 takedowns, defended 1 against Davy Grant. Victory against Davy Grant to now going up against Victor Hugo seems like a step down in competition, clearly. Don't want to put MMA math into the equation, but I'm just saying, I think that Marcos, if it's on the feet, he's going to chop at that leg, that low calf kick. Victor Hugo seems like he's somewhat of a showman, drops his hands, throws wild techniques, very sloppy. And I think he's going to meet his match on the feet. And then he's going to get desperate with takedowns and rolling for leg locks. And let's just hope that he doesn't get them. I'm picking Marcos to win via decision. 8,900. Not really. I could see a finish. I could see a knockout, but not really a guy that I'm circling and saying I have to get to this fight. I mean, his debut was impressive. He scored 104, but that did come at the 7-minute mark against Simon Oliveira. So, I don't know, man. I'm just not a fan of this fight for DFS, but I'm picking Daniel Marcos to win.
Get you on that. Over on Prize Picks, Marcos 44.5 on significant strikes, 10 fight time minute, and 94.5 fantasy score. Any of those stick out to you, Pete?
Not real. I mean, it's because there's so much uncertainty regarding a guy making his debut, and then like Victor Hugo with questionable tape. It seems like a trap. Like everything about this fight seems like a trap to me. So I'm just going to steer away from it, from everything.
I get you on that one. Next up, we got a matchup between Victor Petrino and Modestas Bukauskas. Bukauskas is a plus 200 betting underdog, minus 245 for Petrino. Petrino is 9,000. Bukauskas is 7,200. This is a fight that I wonder, is it a trap to try to make this your underdog play of the week?
It might be, but I'm going to give it a shot. And the reason I'm going to give it a shot is just because I think that Modestas Bukauskas doesn't get the credit that he deserves, just because I think that he's, turned his career completely around after disappointing in the UFC, getting cut, having a devastating injury against Khalil Roundtree, going on a tear, coming back, and then beating Tyson Pedro. So, I think that, Modestas Bukauskas is, I think that he's a very good striker, questionable durability. Picked up a victory against Zach Palga. Palga, a guy that was supposed to impress on The Ultimate Fighter and within the division. But I just think that Modestas is, he's pretty well-rounded, and he's a big guy. He's strong. So, Vitor Petrino's used to muscling almost all of his adversaries, and I don't necessarily know if he can do that against Modestas Bukauskas. If it hits the mat, clearly I don't like Bukauskas there. Because he's susceptible to getting pounded out or possibly getting subbed. But I think that Modestas has good hips. I think that he goes for underhooks well. I think he has good striking. It's just the striking defense that worries me against a very, very dangerous fighter in Vitor Petrino. Petrino, even on the Contender Series, almost he was struggling early on, and he almost disappointed. I mean, he ended up picking up a knockout, but he had to dig deep because he was getting picked apart at times. Anton Turkalj That fight was back and forth. He had to resort to his grappling, and he outmuscled his opponent, got 7 takedowns. The fight against Marcin Prachnio, I hit on that third round submission prop, which was like crazy odds. But yeah, I don't know. Marcin's not good. And for you to take 3 rounds to get him out, I don't know. I just think that Modestas here, he's a light heavyweight. I think he has the experience edge just in all overall MMA fights. And I'm going to pick him. I'm going to pick him to surprisingly knock out Vitor Petrino. It could blow up in my face because I think that everybody's kind of just automatically putting Petrino in their lineups because they think Modestas sucks. But I'm going to say that he looked impressive against Mikhail Olashechuk too, if you go back. So I'm picking Modestas here at 7,200.
You got Petrino over on DraftKings, 39.5 on the significant strike prop, 11 fight time minutes, 2.5 takedown prop, and 96.5.
96.5 is his score?
Fantasy score, yeah.
Well, as a Modestas backer, I'm gonna do that. But like the way I play Prize Picks is not ballsy. I play Prize Picks for safety, so I don't necessarily know if I would include anything in that.
Yeah, for me, what I like to do in terms of MMA Prize Picks is just kind of, okay, whether I'm making that play today, tomorrow, or on Saturday, it's more just kind of highlighting, okay, which are the ones I like, and for me, very much this time of year, it's teaming up in college football, also in NBA. I was literally just looking at NBA because I was looking at what Pancaro's point prop is tonight, which is 16.5, because we only got 4 NBA games tonight, so that was one of those things that I was looking at over there. But yeah, I'm very much a big find 2-3 MMA props that you really like, go with those, and then just enjoy the rest of the fights. Next up, we got Denise Gomes taking on Angela Hill. Angela Hill is a plus 115 betting underdog, minus 135 for Gomes. Gomes is 8,400 on DK, 7,800 for Angela Hill, Pete.
Knee-jerk reaction, I was picking Angela Hill. And then upon tape study, I just start noticing Angela Hill's durability is in question, man. She's taking so many shots. And usually she's the dog in the striking where she just goes out there, bites down on the mouthpiece, throws caution to the wind, lands better combinations, and kind of frustrates her opposition. That's what she was largely known as, just a very good striker who had terrible grappling and wrestling. She's rounded that part of her game out a little bit, but like I'm starting to see her getting hit with every right hand that's thrown. I just see a defensive flaw, a part of her game that I don't think was there before. Maybe she's, nobody likes to get hit, but she's definitely not dealing with it as well as she used to. If you look at it on paper, it looks like she's so durable, and she is, but like she's having to like struggle to survive in some of these fights. Like Mackenzie Dern hurt her numerous times, and Mackenzie Dern, she was putting some heat behind those punches, but like her grappling's her strong suit. And Angela Hill, like she's gone the distance with some dangerous strikers, but at times it's like, oh my gosh. And against a fighter in Denise Gomes, power is like a rarity for women's MMA. And Denise Gomes has that stopping power, that Jessica Andrade stopping power. Short notice debut against Loma Lookboonmee, nearly won that, put Loma in some bad spots, attempted 3 submissions. So even if this becomes a grappling contest, I think that she can threaten for a finish. Back-to-back knockout wins for Denise Gomes over Bruna Brazil in the second round in Yasmin Jauregui. The issue I see is that I'm going to play this week. I'm going to hope that these women's MMA bouts go the distance as they used to historically. I'm just going to hope that they're low scoring. But if I had to pick a ceiling play, it's clearly Denise Gomes, because just like Denise Gomes has that stopping power about her. But the first KO she had in the UFC against Bruna Brazil came at 7 minutes and 42 seconds. When Angela Hill gets hurt, she clinches up really well and she initiates the tie clinch, which I did see somewhat of Denise Gomes have a weakness in there against Loma Lookboonmee, who's a clinch expert. And then she kind of led to some head and arm throws. But I just think that, Angela Hill knows how to survive despite her record being 10-13 in UFC. She's very, very tough out. I think it's going to come down to who landed the better shots. And I think Denise Gomes is going to get her hand raised. I'm just going to hope that it doesn't get finished. In some of my lineups, of course, I'm going to account for the finish, but in my main lineups, I think I'm going to avoid this fight and just think that Denise Gomes has the better shots and wins a decision.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 props on Denise Gomes available on Prize Picks. Significant strike 75.5, fantasy score 83.5. I mean,
I'm hoping. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a potential low score there. Next up, we got another female matchup. As really the question comes is, can she defend the head and arm throw? Because we all know that's Ruiz's go-to move in this one. Montserrat Ruiz is a plus 440 betting underdog, minus 600 for Eduarda. Eduarda is 9,400 on DK and 6,800 for Ruiz. Pete.
Yeah, I think that Montserrat Ruiz could be solid if they had like an atomweight division. But I just think that at strawweight and anything higher, she's just too small. She has a great headlock. And if you do not know how to sag your hips or defend a headlock, or at least make an adjustment, if you get caught with it once, okay. But don't get caught with it numerous times as Cheyenne Velismus did. She had 10 minutes of control time, 4 or 5 in the takedown department, and ended up winning that over Cheyenne Velismus, which was impressive. She scored 102.99. Eduarda Mora, coming from the same camp as Jailton Almeida. Don't know much about the camp other than it's just, everybody I've seen out of there, they're monsters. Eduarda Mora impressed on Dana White's Contender Series. I think this girl's really good and really big, very physical. I think that she's going to pick up a victory here. It's just, again, if she does get a finish, I hope it's later so that it doesn't, affect the slate too much, because I do think that Montserrat Ruiz has been focusing on her boxing for some time now. And she has okay, survival skills, but I think ultimately Eduarda Mora is going to impose her will on her and either get a dominant decision or get her out of there. So Eduarda Mora is the play at 9,400. I'm not going to punt with Montserrat Ruiz in any lineups, but historically it is women's MMA and underdogs pop in women's MMA and heavyweight MMA. So I won't hate you if you go that route, but I'm not doing it. I'm picking Eduardo Mora to win pretty decisively here.
Appreciate everyone tuning in here to the Fight HQ podcast. You watch us live here on YouTube. Andrew, appreciate it, man. Scott, to see you're there. Ryan over there as well. We appreciate everyone tuning in here. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Of course, you can also check us out on the audio platforms as well. Of course, we got our Discord channel, totally free to join. A lot of great conversation, not just with MMA, but other DFS sports out there. Of course, I know there's been some great dialogue with the NBA channel. Talk about those NBA lineups. Of course, we got that DraftKings contest for Saturday's UFC São Paulo. Maybe we'll have to throw some NBA listener contests if people are interested. Let us know in Discord. Me and Pete can definitely set up those contests. We want to maybe do a little Fight HQ NBA contest. So if you want to check it out, let us know. Of course, we have one more fight to talk before we give our straight up picks and answer the questions that have come in here, and that's Mark Dye Casey, who is a minus 175 betting favorite. He's 8,600 on DK. Taking on Fernandez here, who's plus 145 and 7,600 on DK, Pete.
Okay. Vegas does this, all right? Vegas does this where they set a line, and it's a fishy line, whether it's for football, basketball, fights, or whatever, where it almost seems too good to be true, because Mark Casey against any newcomer should be more than a minus 150 favorite. Just saying. This guy's fought so many people. Joel Alvarez, Michael Johnson, Damir Hadzovic, Borshev, Rafael Alves, Rafael Fiziev, Venata, Duffy, Hawkprost, Hooker, Close. I mean, I can go on and on. I just rattled off like 10 of them. He's fought legitimate competition. The issue here, and I'm going to warn everybody that's watching right now, and thank you guys for watching, is I think Vegas is setting a trap line because there are 2 fighters with almost the same name, and Kawa Fernandez and Kawe Fernandez. And if you type in on YouTube or Facebook or Google, some of the videos you're watching are for the wrong guy, because I was doing it, and I'm like, oh man, this guy, Kawa Fernandez, got taken down and subbed and looked like a fish on the mat. And then I look on his Tapology record. I'm like, wait a minute. He doesn't have a submission loss. So I looked into it more. Cauê Fernandes is the guy we're talking about. Nova União product, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, phenomenal striker, excellent Muay Thai, phenomenal kicks, as evidenced in his LFA head kick knockouts. I think a lot of people are going to get, steered into the Mark Jacasey, too good to be true value. And that was my knee-jerk reaction. But I think that this being in Brazil means something. And also the fact that Cauê, if he does get taken down, and there's one fight of his where he did look like he got fatigued because he was taken down and controlled, he hunts submissions like crazy. And we know Mark Jacasey, despite his knack for loving to wrestle and looking to go in there and take down Borshev 11 of 18 times, Demir 8 of 11 times, like attempting ridiculous Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington numbers for the takedowns. I think that he's putting himself in danger because on the feet, Cauê will bomb away, and everything he throws is with bad intentions. And then if he does grapple with Cauê has excellent arm bars, just good leg locks, great attacks, even to just get back to his feet. I personally think that Cauê is going to be an underdog that has some of the highest finishing upside on the slate. But as the fight goes late, clearly it tilts in the vet's favor. So I'm going to be picking Cauê Fernandes, which really surprises me. But I am. I'm going to pick him here because if in all of Mark Jacasey's fights in the UFC, every time somebody's attempted a submission on him, he's lost. And I think that Cauê is going to attempt a submission on him. And that seems like silly logic, but also just everything I see, there is a line where Mark Jacasey will give. And I think that Cauê is going to push that line and force him to give. So give me Cauê at 7,600 to kind of shock the world, break the slate. And, it is first fight of the night, so the volatility with that. So it surprises me because that's not what my first initial reaction to the fight was. But after researching it and thinking about it, I just don't like Mark Jacasey is going to be putting himself in danger time and time again.
You know me. I hate playing the first fight of the night. It's just something I really don't love to do there. Let's get into our straight up fight picks, Pete, on this one. Main event. I was more interested if this would have been Curtis Blaydes. I think it would have been a very interesting test. But, I think Jailton Almeida rules here.
Same. Jailton Almeida. And it's a shame, too, right? Because, I don't like the opponent for Derrick Lewis. I don't know. Get him in other matchups, not this one.
Yeah. I'll go Gabriel Bonfim.
Yeah, Gabriel Bonfim, big time.
Oh, man, this next one, I don't feel good either way. Give me underdog number one and Dontel Mays.
Yeah, I hate it, but I'm going Dontel Mays.
We'll get back to the favorite trade here because I go Borralho.
Yeah, Borralho as well.
I will go. This is a pick 'em fight, so give me Armen Petroysan. There are some books out there. He is the underdog, so if you're in a place where you can play some bets, and shop around, might be able to find plus money on him.
Yeah, give me Petroysan.
Then I will. This is. I'll go Ismael Bonfim, but I feel like this could be the 9K option that might not perform the way you would hope.
I was thinking that too. I was really trying to talk my way into Vinc Pichel pulling it off, but I will still say that despite my hatred for the number, I'm picking Ismael Bonfim.
Give me Brener.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Brener as well.
Fakhretdinov. I go Marcos. Give me Victor Petrino.
Okay, I'm going with Bukauskas.
I feel like I should not say this name, but I'm gonna say it. Angela Hill.
Okay, I'm gonna go Denise Gomes.
Eduardo
Mora.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna disagree here. Give me DKC.
No problem. I'm gonna go with Cauê Fernandes. Let's go.
I will tell you. So as of right now, there's 3 props that I've circled on Prize Picks. I say less than 11 fight time minutes on Petrino. I think one of those guys will catch each other. I think that fight ends within 2 rounds. Give me the more than 76.5 fantasy score on Armen Petroysan. I think if he wins, he should be able to smash that number. And then I'm going up Borralho with a 30.5 significant strikes. Give me more than 30.5 significant strikes. So it'll be the three prize picks plays. As of right now, if I do, there's some more things I like. I will put that over in our Discord channel. Speaking of the Discord channel, gets some questions that came in here earlier today. First up, value plays on under 8K on DraftKings and FanDuel cheapies. Obviously, I'll double check, see if we've got any FanDuel lines, but FanDuel salaries. But I think when you start talking about that underneath 8K, I think you got to look at Dontel Mays. Even though we do like Petroysan, I think Rodolfo Vieira, if he can get that one to the ground and utilize it. Outside of that, Pete, I don't mind the punt of Bukakis at 7,200. I wouldn't go Angela Hill in a GPP. That'd be, to me, more of a cash games play than a GPP play if you're going to go there. And you made some great points on Fernandez.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm lying as well. And that's kind of why I was pivoting away from some of these bouts. It's like, it's what makes DFS for MMA so hard, is when you try to put logic behind it and predict scores. It's very difficult. But yeah, like if Angela Hill wins, does she score well? Not really. I mean, but like, she has put up tons of volume in the past, so it's possible. I mean, she has gone out there and scored 104 in a decision win against Emily Ducote, but I just think that the power of Denise Gomes is going to limit some of that upside. So yeah, like as far as underdogs where I'm looking this week, if I was going to punt for anybody, it ain't Lewis. It's not Ruiz. It's not Dalby. Not Magomedov. It's got to be Pichel for me as a complete punt, possibly doing enough in a loss. But then, like, I like Bukowskis, Mays, and Fernandez as part of my underdog pool this week.
All right. Next question we have here in terms of FanDuel cheapies. I mean, I think it kind of really relates to some of those same thoughts that we just had. We'll see what those salaries are going to be. Best leverage play. I think we'll see where ownership clearly goes. Armen Petroysan right now sticks out a little bit to me at where we're seeing his ownership at. The other one that who was the other one I had circled here? Dontel Mays, I think, is another one that's kind of interesting as an ownership play.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bukowskis from an ownership standpoint. I just think for that division, for light heavyweight and heavyweight, like, these guys always need to have more ownership than what it comes at. So when I see him down there, kind of bottom of the barrel ownership-wise, I'm like, okay, I understand why people are away from him, but from a leverage standpoint, I think that it's worth a flyer.
Best takedown upside.
Jailton Almeida. Rinat Fakhretdinov. Eduardo Mora. And then it comes down to Nascimento and Jacasey. Do they actually wrestle? They should. But yeah, that's where I would go.
Yeah, Jacasey, I think, is the one that kind of sticks out to me, and that's where I think that's where you can kind of utilize where are these props on prize picks and kind of relation into that. Now, rank the 9K options. We got 7 9K options here, Pete. I mean, I think you have to rank Almeida number 1, right?
Yeah, for me. Gabriel Bonfim's 2 for me.
Okay.
3 is Eduardo Mora for me.
Okay.
4 is Rinat Fakhretdinov. 5 is Kyle Borralho. 6 is Ismael Bonfim, and 7 is Vitor Petrino. And the only reason my rankings are like that is just because I'm believing in Modestus. But, like, pound for pound value for the 9,000, like, he's performed at that 9,000 range. So I wouldn't hate it if you had him higher.
Best options for 7,500 and below. I think you look at Dontel Mays at 7,400, just because of what he could potentially do, but it is a low heavyweight fight there. You mentioned about Modestus Bukakis at 7,200 over there, and
I think Victor Hugo is the guy that is kind of the most unknown, one of the most unknown commodities, a part of the card. And whenever you're willing to take a shot on a guy like that, it can set yourself up really well. But everything that I found on him, I just didn't like it. He reminds me too much against Daniel Da Silva.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of these ownership plays, because that was that was a question. The opening fight of the night, either side, I think is an interesting ownership play. Other ones, Bukakis, Hugo, Petroysan, and Mays, I think are the ones I stick to. And, and so like, if you check out, ownership project that Stochastic has, what I really love to do on fight day is it's seeing who are the fighters that are underneath 20% and below. And then it becomes to, okay, what are the fights that just doesn't have a huge overall ownership into it? And to me, as we look at it right now, I think that opening fight of the night is that kind of that fight you got to look at and say, that's kind of that, if you're looking to get a little bit of leverage on the field there. Let's just say here, it'll get go over to YouTube, get the YouTube questions in here. Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in here on YouTube. We start to wrap up the show here. It says, are we going to see a 6-pack Lewis again? We'll see what it looks like on the scale tomorrow. Picks aside, who would be your top MVP and value plays for a FanDuel GPP? In terms of MVP, I mean, look, Almeida's going to be $23. I mean, let's just, so, question is there going to be someone else on this card that maybe just has that more of a fantasy score upside than Almeida?
So I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't get a finish in rounds 1 or 2. I think that the only other one, and it would come down to price, would be Gabriel Bonfim for me. I'm really bullish on his finishing potential here against Nicolas Dalby, who hasn't been finished technically. But yeah, if he comes in 20, 19, 18, something like that, I'd be hopping all over that number and putting him in the captain contest.
Yeah, I mean, other ones that I would probably look at in terms of, maybe a captain contest, I would probably be looking at someone like Rinat Fakhretdinov as potentially. We'll see what the ownership is. I mean, that really plays into me. I mean, in terms of, value / cheap plays on FanDuel, I mean, to me, it's some of the same names we've brought up. Mays, Bukakis, Victor Hugo. I think those will be the three that's potentially looks over there in terms of that. Favorite loser to break the slate, assuming all favorites win. That to me is where that's where you start, and it goes back to the game theory that you've utilized in the past of, who is that potential losing fighter who might get you 40, 50 points.
Yeah, I think it's Vinc Pichel. Truthfully, I just think if all favorites win, who scores the best? And I think that it's probably Rodolfo Vieira or Vinc Pichel, just because they do have takedown upside if they go the route.
I just did look over FanDuel. They still have not posted the salaries up there. But once they do, myself and Pete, we can give our analysis over there in Discord. So, as always, we appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, be sure to join that Discord, totally free to join. We got our DraftKings contest as well. We got merch out there as well. A lot of great ways to show your support for what we do at Fight HQ. Pete, any final comments for everyone?
No, thank you guys so much. Continue to help us get to 1,000 subscribers. The Discord channel is crazy. We got like 300 and change members or something, so it's pretty awesome having all types of conversations in there, MMA related, other sports related. But yeah, as far as this fight card goes, I think the ownership is going to fluctuate a little bit once Elvis Brener and his opponent become live a part of the contest. So I'm interested to see if some other fights become a little underweight, and we'll tackle all that in our Discord channel. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll be over in Houston on Saturday, as I'll land in Houston pretty much right as these fights are kicking off. So I'll have the fights up on the phone, and as I'm enjoying Houston, I think I'm going to try to hit the Rockets game on Saturday night. So
do it.
So I know I'm staying not too far from the arena, so I think that's potentially. And tickets actually weren't that bad. I thought tickets would have been a little more expensive than they were, but looking forward to being in Houston this weekend. Of course, as always, we appreciate you tuning in for the podcast. Of course, like, rate, review, subscribe, all that, and we appreciate you tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast.